My name is Charles Harrell. I'm with the Veterans History Project. Today is May 28th, 2005. I'm here at the American Legion Hall interviewing Mr. Daniel Franklin John Mastin. Mr. Mastin, for the record, would you please state your full name for the tape?
Daniel F. Mastin.
And when were you born?
October 16, 1925.
And where were you born?
Spotsylvania County.
What branch of service did you serve in?
Infantry.
And can you tell me when you joined the military?
When I joined the military, well, I was drafted October 16th.
July 27?
July 27.
44?
44.
And you were released March 22nd?
In 46.
46. What company were you in?
Company H.
Of what
28th
regiment?
Infantry Regiment.
And what division?
8th Infantry Division.
And did you serve in the Pacific or Europe?
No, ETO.
What was your major job in the military?
Well, I went in as a machine gun I went in on a machine gun first when I went in. However, I was at there was soon after the the breakthrough wasn't over. I guess the campaign wasn't over for the Ardennes, and because you went where you were told to go. If you had something to do, they sent you out to help get up wounded prisoners or whatever when you was in a replacement depot, as you know. And so then the first place that I wound up was after that from Belgium was back to the 8th Infantry Division in the Hurtgen Forest.
You were still in school when the war began, is that right?
No, I quit school.
Were you working on the farm or
No, I was in worked at sawmill.
When you heard about Pearl Harbor being attacked, do you remember that day?
Yes, I remember it very well. It was a sad day for all Americans, and I had no idea though because I was so young at that time. I thought maybe it would be over before I ever got to be the age to be drafted.
Did you know anybody else who was being drafted?
Oh yeah, I had a close friend, Hurtgen. He drafted, went in the Navy, and was on I believe a Liberty ship. There was a lot of small ships that carried troops and stuff overseas before they got to had crossed over to making ships like Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth and big ships, which I was lucky to. I went over on a Queen Mary, and it went by itself just in one ship, long, because it could outrun German U-boats.
Mr. Cherning was drafted. Did he write to you?
No, I believe Mr. Cherning joined.
Joined, okay.
And he got killed in I don't know exactly how long after that, but he went down on the ship.
On the ship?
Yes, sir.
Submarine attack?
I imagine. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it was.
How did that make you feel when you heard about that?
Bad. Real bad.
Were you ready to fight also? Because you were that angry? Or
I guess so.
Or were you scared?
I don't know. I just, knew it'd be a time it'd come, I guess, when you had to do something.
Well, you mentioned you were drafted. You were still a young man, though, not 20 years old yet.
Right. I guess I was overseas at 19, a little after that.
Did any of your friends get drafted at the same time?
Yes, 2 other guys got drafted at the same, maybe 3, but they went in like I did, probably as replacements. Somebody else had got wounded or hurt or killed.
You mentioned that you went to basic training where?
Camp Wheeler, Georgia.
Camp Wheeler. How was that first day at Camp Wheeler as a new draftee, way away from home?
Well, it didn't bother me a whole lot.
Were you physically fit?
Yeah, I was just about as tough as they were for my size and age, I guess, and it didn't bother me. I saw some big men when they would get to marching, you know, in the hot weather would fall out. And I'm not boosting, but I was tough too. If you work at sawmill around the country, you got to be right tough. And I'd done all the things a boy my age would do, I guess.
Had you traveled a lot then?
I had traveled some.
For the job, though, working, right?
No. I had traveled some. I wasn't right at home where I left. I went to Maryland, and so I was in the state of Maryland. And I came back home, and well, as I recalled, just ordinary work.
So you went to Camp Wheeler. Did you have practice shooting guns here before you joined?
You took off. Oh yeah, sure. I had practice shooting guns. Hunted everything anybody else hunted, you know.
Were you a good shot then?
I thought I was.
And when you got a hold of a military gun at Camp Wheeler and started practicing there with target shooting with the M1, I suppose, is that right?
M1, we had all.
Did you rank any level with that?
Oh yeah, I qualified. Whatever.
And then you got into machine guns.
What you did when you was in a heavy weapons company, when you trained in a heavy weapons company, you trained in a lot of different with a lot of different weapons. We fired what was it? Heavy machine guns than the 30 caliber, but we had the 30 caliber, we had the
50?
bazooka, yeah, we had let's see, we had the M1, the 03 too, I believe. We may have fired that a little bit. That was earlier than the M1.
Did you specialize? Did you like one over another?
I like the fire machine gun. But when I went overseas, it just so happened that they put me in the, 605 spec number that was in the heavy machine gun. I mean 30 caliber machine gun.
Let's talk.
When I went up in the Hurtgen Forest, I went on when we moved back up online there with the snow all over up to your tail, we was on the outpost with the machine gun set up on the outpost because you put most of your firepower, of course, up front, and that's what we were standing guard on that squad. I was in the machine gun squad.
When the attack came,
But I never fired the machine gun. As far as we had carbines too. See, we had a carbine. That's what I carried, and we never got attacked on the outpost.
Did you?
It was different. It was always different. You know, if you was moving up. Took you so many minutes to set up and you're ready to fire.
Did you carry a lot of ammunition also?
Well, the guy that I took his place. So you had a jeep in the machine gun squad, maybe 2 jeeps, 1 jeep I know, but he got killed. Him and the lieutenant. The Germans captured the jeep. They put on American clothes and tried to get back to the lines in America, and they captured them. And that old Jeep wasn't used by any. They didn't have a driver for it for a good while, and finally reluctantly, I went on and drove a Jeep. I had a GI driver's license that I got in the States in service. And you're supposed to have a GI driver's license before you can drive anything overseas. And I told the sergeant, I said, man, I don't want to get in this. I'd just rather stay here with the rest of the guys. And after about 2 or 3 weeks, he said, well, you can step on one of them landmines just saying that you can run over one. I'd seen so many that Jeeps was knocked out because that they run over landmines. But it was true. And so finally I went took the Jeep driver's job. And then they transferred, I just went over into what's called 81 millimeter mortar, which you train with that too in heavy weapons company.
When you took the Queen Mary across the water, the ocean, what did it feel like to be on such a huge ship?
Great. Felt great.
Can you describe how you lived on that ship?
It was real tight quarters, close quarters. But otherwise it was good.
The food good too?
Pretty good. Got tired of the English marmalade. But it was pretty good.
And you landed directly in Belgium and France, is that right?
I landed in Scotland.
In Scotland?
I believe it's on that discharge, the third hill. Well, it was in Scotland anyway. And then we went up to England, and I forget it's in this book.
Right. But finally you ended up at the Ardennes.
Yeah, but you had to cross the English Channel and land in France, and then go ahead went up through France to the Ardennes.
To the Ardennes. How did you, from the time you got off the boat in France and got to the Ardennes, how did you get that distance? Did you walk or drive?
No, we went on a train, 48. That's where they got your 48 guys at.
You were on a boxcar then?
Mm-hmm.
How did you survive that? Did you sit on a box or did you lay on the ground?
No, get up in there and lay on the floor any way you can. I survived it all right.
Was it cold?
Cold, yeah, cold.
If I have it right, you joined up right then when the Battle of the Bulge was occurring.
Well, yes. See, the way I understand it, they determined what a campaign was. You went in when it was so many days, and if you was in that campaign, then before the time frame ran out, that was where you was considered as in that campaign. That's the way I understand it. Now I could be wrong.
When you first got up to the front lines, was it in the Hurtgen Forest? Is that where you
yes, really.
There was no attack on your position, though.
No more than, because snow was up to your hind parts, and was no attack at that time. It just be skirmishes because we were on one big ridge and they was on another ridge, and a big valley in between us, and they'd have little skirmishes, had fire back and forwards across each other.
Did your position ever get hit by German artillery fire?
Oh yeah, our positions got hit a lot of times by German fire.
What did you do?
But not right in that time, right in there.
What did you do when it did get hit? When you do get hit by artillery fire?
What do you mean? What did you do?
As a combat soldier, what did
you take cover the best you could do. It's the only way I know how to answer you. You could after you was there for good, for a while. They would shoot air bursts, and you'd see the shrapnel. Where the smoke bursted up in the air. And if it was overhead, them pieces of shrapnel, the claim would be done already hit you when you heard it burst. I don't know. I never. God blessed me, and I never had a piece to hit me. And a lot of them did get hit, go back, get well, come back.
So you saw a lot of wounded come back for service.
Yeah. I've seen some old boys that went back and forward, but I never got hit.
In the snow in the Hurtgen Forest, did you ever get trench foot?
No, I didn't.
How were you able to avoid it?
Well, keep your feet dry as possible. I never got trench foot, but some of them did. They got trench foot along about that time. They say even going up in the boxcars, but I wasn't one of them.
Did you ever have frostbite from being exposed so long?
No. No, sir.
Had you spent time as a younger man doing a lot of camping in the winter, or experiencing cold like that?
I was just a average run of the mill, I guess, boy, out in the country, and we hadn't been babied. You know, we felt like it felt tough.
Well, as the Battle of Hurtgen Forest ended and the next campaign and the movement forward into Germany occurred, can you recall any of the military skirmishes that you were personally involved in?
Well, you were involved in them as a whole. You know what I mean? As a whole, we after the Hurtgen. After that was over, we crossed the Ruhr River, and that was down below Düren, town of Düren, Germany. And from there, we went from the Ruhr to the Rhine. And we held at the Rhine just a little while, not too long. I don't recall how long, but another outfit, a new outfit from the States, came up and took over. We went around to Bonn, Germany, and crossed on pontoon boats.
Had you ever been on a pontoon boat before?
I mean pontoon bridge, I'm sorry.
Bridge?
We crossed over on a pontoon bridge. And from there we went up to what they call the Ruhr Valley pocket. That was a big pocket, industrial pocket, that they had, the United States elected to go around at that time. They were moving so fast, and we went up there and with I forget what the outfit was, and again it's recorded here in this book.
You were still with Company H, right?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Okay. This pocket, I've had other people describe the pocket a little bit, but
it's a real, what they call it, was an industrialized pocket that they made a lot of stuff for war. Because Hitler didn't make nothing but something for the war, I guess.
Why'd they call it a pocket?
Well, because it was a big area that people had, they had left there with German soldiers and to guard it and fill it up.
So we bypassed it?
It had been bypassed, and we went to clean it out, clear it up.
Was there intense counterattacks while you were trying to clean up the pockets?
Oh yeah. I recall that they sent about 6 of us out to one area and told us that we might draw up a lot of fire because they wanted the Germans to think it was coming from that area, and which they were going around and come into enough from another area.
Did you get a lot of counter?
No, we didn't. No, we didn't. We didn't. We got some fire, but they must have figured it out, I guess. Didn't get. I was glad we didn't get no fire because we didn't have. There was just up in holes, dug in holes, and we was going to fire right much and hope that we would draw the fire on us. But I was darn glad it didn't draw the fire on us.
As the war continued, you crossed the Rhine River and crossed the Ruhr, and you went into Germany. deeper and deeper. How was the civilians towards you in Germany?
A lot of them was all right. You know, and some of them wasn't. I picked up what German I could pick up right away. You know, everybody do for your own good, so that you could get along. You know, learn a little German, speak a little German.
Did you find there was a lot of anger toward you as an American soldier in their country?
No, not really. They would tell you, I think it was a lot of Germans that had pulled off the uniforms, and they would tell you that they was Polski, you know, Polak. Said all the Germans is a vac, but we found a lot of those uniforms in the houses, and as we go through from house to house, we found a lot of those uniforms that they done pulled off and just turned back to civilian because they didn't want the Americans to get them, I guess.
Did you capture any prisoners?
Oh yeah, we captured a lot of prisoners. We had over 40,000 prisoners at the end of the war that came into us, that surrendered to the United States, which I was then with the British Second Army. I believe it was the 82nd Division and the 8th Division. They put with the British Second Army on the last drive before the end of the war, and we crossed the Elbe River and met the Russians. And the Russians, the Germans, wanted to surrender to us rather than to surrender to the Russians, because they knew they'd get treated better.
How did you end up with the British Army?
They put you with who they wanted. You know, they put the 82nd Airborne and the 8th Infantry Division with the British Second Army because they was in that area.
So you were still in your company. They just moved the entire
I was still
division.
still in my company, my regiment, my division. But they needed a couple divisions, I guess, and so we was attached to. We were just attached to them.
When you approached the Elbe, did you actually cross the Elbe River yourself?
Oh, sure.
Did you meet any Russians?
No, I crossed. We had Russians. The Russians came and hobnobbed with the Americans, you know, after the war.
But you didn't meet them there while the war was still going on?
No. But we had, it shows pictures here too, that we had 40,000 prisoners in 2 or 3 big fields right at Schwerin, Germany. And they had machine guns set up on every post but they could have overrun us if they wanted. When they came by, they'd throw the rifle up on the stack, and they were using horse-drawn artillery. Using horses because they was getting shot and shot on what they call benzene, which was a gas, and we didn't have nothing to feed them jokers with. Not that quick, not that many people. And so they was ordered to kill them horses. And they had tripods and quarters of horses swinging up all over that field. And they'd have a stew there. They eat that horse meat.
So your supplies were not limited,
right? Not just, it was so, at the end of the war with all those men coming in.
Was your supplies during the entire winter, did you have plenty of supplies for yourself?
Sure. If you didn't have one thing, you had something else. You had K rations or C rations or whatever they could get you.
But then when the Germans surrendered en masse, you didn't have enough for them too.
No. But no, they didn't cut off, they didn't stint us. We still had what we would have gotten anyway.
Did you meet any German officers?
Oh, sure, we met German officers.
What was their attitude toward the Americans?
Some of them good, some of them bad.
Any of them snide to you?
What was that?
Were they snide or uppity or superior?
Not really. I recall one I recall one when I was talking about when they were throwing the rifles up on the stack, just like a long row of cordwood, believe it or not. And I think maybe pictures here, but one of them guys, one of the Germans, a GI was going to take his guns from him. He didn't want to give up his pistols, and I ain't sure that he didn't shoot that boy. And as supply officer happened to be there, he pulled his gun out and shot him right on the spot. That's what everybody else would have done, wasn't it?
Was there? Did you carry anything for good luck during those months?
For good what?
Good luck.
No.
While you were in the service, did you see any entertainers that spoke to your company?
Oh yes, we had on one or two occasions, if they could get a break, entertainers from the United States would come over and they'd have a place back behind the lines. Truck 'em, man, give them maybe a little break, and they'd put on the show, USO show.
When you went into combat, were you on the front lines from then on, or were you pulled back for rest?
Sometimes we would pull back for a rest. The 28th might be regiment might be up, and the 13th might come up and go in between them and relieve them off the lines.
How long were these reliefs typically?
It just depends. It just depends on how. If things were heated up, you would take, instead of one regiment, you couldn't spam. He'd have to be up there too, but they'd try to keep one in reserve.
Did you ever get leave while the war was going on?
Over there, they had parish passes. They had different places they could go to, and they put the names in a hat or something. And I never was lucky enough to get not the first pass. Never was.
While you were in service, can you recall any particularly humorous or unusual events or things you saw?
Oh, I don't know. It wasn't all glum, You had some fun sometimes.
Did you make any close friends in those months that you were in the front lines?
Well, I thought a lot of that section sergeant. His name was Sergeant Talbot. He was from Tennessee, and he was a real good man. He was the best man in combat that I think I ever seen. And if he got a Paris pass, was lucky enough to get a pass, he'd stay there. He said the boys might need him. They might have to move up, or be a counterattack. After the war was over, I was on a little vacation with the wife and children. He lived in Bristol, Tennessee, and I went by and I did see him for a few. I looked him up, saw him for an hour or so, and never saw him after that. I don't know what happened. I couldn't get him. But that's the last time. That's been years ago.
When you were in the military, did they call you by any nicknames those months you were in Europe?
Well, sometimes they called me Junior because I was about the youngest one in there. One of the youngest ones in there. Most all of the guys was older than I was.
Did you look up to any of the guys as father figures? Were they that older than you?
No, I didn't look up none of them as father figures. But, most of them pretty good guys.
Was there anybody who really did something special to you before you?
Well, I had a guy by the name of Sergeant Jacobs. He was a transportation sergeant, and he kind of looked out for me right much.
How about your officers in that company? What'd you
Good
think
guys.
of them?
A lot of them were battlefield commissioned, and that tells you here too.
Meaning they were sergeants before?
And that meant that they were chosen to be battlefield commissioned. In other words, right took off the battlefield and carried back to headquarters and made lieutenants. They'd make them second lieutenant and first, and then they'd move on up to first or whatever. But we had, I think, maybe 3 battlefield commissioned lieutenants. They wasn't, from the state side. They made it over there.
How about your officers that were in charge of your regiment? Did you even see them?
Oh yeah, you see them every now and then, but you didn't. You just see them, salute them, go away.
The war ends in Europe in May. Adolf Hitler, of course, commits suicide a week or so before, and so does FDR. He dies just a few weeks before the war is over. How did you find out about FDR's death?
We were in a little town, and I don't know where. There was some. I can't name the town. If I scrap back through here, I might dig it out. But the first that I knew of, this German was in this big house. He could speak just better than I can English. And he had a lot of equipment set up in that house. And I wondered after that, didn't he could have been an observer for the Germans or whatever, but he told us that President Roosevelt had died.
How did the morale of your company and your squad reflect?
Yeah, went on. That's all you had. You had to pick up and keep going.
How about when the news of Hitler's death?
Well, I really can't recall that. I mean, I think it. You get so many things that call rumors that you wouldn't know whether it was a rumor or not, but until later, I guess.
When the war ended in May of 1945 in Europe, what did you expect would happen to you?
So, what did I expect to happen? Well, getting back to the whole situation, when I first went in the Army, they told us in infantry training that you'd better learn to shoot that weapon and to shoot it right, know how to shoot it, and know what to do, and be able to discipline yourself, because you were going overseas. They dwelt that into you every day, that you were going overseas. And when we finished over in Europe, we felt like it, the ones that had been there long enough to get out, because they'd been in Ireland a year or two before they crossed the channel there. But we felt like it, you were going to Japan probably. And so at the end of the war, when we came back, we had a 30-day delay in route, leave, and we were getting ready to go back to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. That was our home base for the 8th Infantry. And when we went through Baltimore, we learned that the war was over in Japan. Going back to Fort Leonard Wood.
How did you get back across the ocean?
On the USS United States. I believe that was the name of the ship. That was a luxury liner too. They done converted it. And we really eat good coming back.
What do you remember about that?
Oh, boy, I remember that. We really ate good coming back from overseas.
Did you have steak?
I can't recall, but I just know it was good food.
It was good food. You came home, you thought you were still going to go to war. And
right.
The end of the war happens in Japan. What did you do that day when you heard about the surrender of the Japanese?
Raise hell. No, we were happy. I just said that. But we was actually on the train. We was on the train in Baltimore, getting ready to go back to Fort Leonard Wood.
Did the train get diverted back somewhere else?
No, we went on back to Fort Leonard Wood. They had up a big sign at the gate. Said, "Welcome home, you fighting ETO versus Tokyo." But in a couple of days they took it down.
Did the war and your service? Well, you were still in the service for another 7 months or so.
Something like that.
Your friends were getting discharged and you weren't.
Yeah, but I wanted to get out. I didn't want to stay in there.
You did not want to become a career military man?
No, man, I didn't want to get. I wanted to get out.
What was your dream to be before the military? Did you have any hopes?
Well, not really. I just hadn't thought about it that much, I guess. But I came back home, and after I got discharged, I came home, and with the help of one of my brothers, I too went into the sawmill business.
And you operated a sawmill for your career for the rest of the time?
Well, no, I operated for a while, and my real, to answer to the first part of that question, I always wanted to be an auctioneer. And I could have came home and went under the GI Bill, but I didn't chose to do that. I picked up old sawmill and rigged it up and went into sawmill business.
Did you ever get to become an auctioneer?
Oh yeah, many times. I came an auctioneer. I've done my first auction in 1946, and I done them in conjunction. In 1975, I went into the sawmill business, and I did auctions from then on.
Was your parents still alive when you came home?
My mother.
Your mother?
My father died when I was 7 years old.
Had you written your mother while you were in service?
Oh, sure.
Overseas? How did you write her? Through regular mail?
Through regular mail, but they told you just by what, because everything was censored. And you might as well not put in something that you knew wasn't going to pass, because they ain't going to read it. Scratch it out.
Did you ever receive any packages or mail from her?
Yes, I did. Now, I'll tell you a little story, and it's, believe it if you want to, don't believe it if you don't want to, but I was in this replacement depot in Belgium, and this guy, I knew that my brother was in the 29th Division, and I got talking with this guy because I knew he was in Cigna, and I asked him what outfit he was with, and we got talking. And he was in the same company my brother was in. My brother had got hit at Brest, France, and he told me that boy come back to the company go back to the 29th Division company where he was in. He told me that said your brother's going back to the States. I knew it before my mother knew it.
What was the slogan for your division? Did you have a slogan for your division?
Well, I think they call themselves the Pathfinders.
But you were a replacement.
I was just a replacement. Many months later.
Did you join any veterans organizations?
This one right here, American Legion Post 320. I was a charter member.
Did you ever attend any of the reunions with the 8th Division?
No, I reluctantly, I said I was going. They started for a few years after that, and I never went, and then something else just always got in the way, and I never did go. But I'm sure that most of those guys have passed on by now.
Did you ever get close enough to those people in the Company H to still remember them today if you went to a reunion?
I don't know that. Everybody changes. And I don't know whether... Well, I'm sure I'd know some of them.
While you were in combat in Europe, did you see any heroic activity by people in your company?
Yeah, I guess so.
Can you describe that event?
Well, I'd rather not talk about that.
How did your service in the military affect your life?
Well, I guess it learns you to be more disciplined, you know. And it's something that I don't know whether servicemen would, if you told them to do, and maybe they would. But whatever if you was told to do then, you were going to try to do it. If you get killed trying, you know. When they told you to do something in service in, you did it. Or tried to do it.
Did your military experience influence the way you thought about war or the military?
What was that?
Did your military experience, being in the Army for the 2 years you were, did it affect how you saw the Army in your future life?
Well, it would certainly be a thing of necessity. Our service is a way of necessity. It's just got to be, we got to have somebody to, in other words, whoever's in service at the time, like these guys now, and they're pulling a hard fight there, you know. They don't know who they're fighting, and that makes it bad on them. And if I might sound stupid, and I probably am, but it looks like to me that they ought to get enough over there to do the job and get them out of there. And I think it just with this piecemeal stuff, that we'll send a few up there and get them knocked off or hurt. That I don't know when there will be a break in it, to tell you the truth.
You were around during Vietnam.
Oh, yeah.
How did you think our military did in Vietnam versus what they did there in World War II?
Well, I think all of them did great. The worst thing of it was, I think the United States soldiers and personnel getting tied up in so much dope. In my opinion, that's the worst thing that will ever happen to this country, is bringing all that dope, getting involved in that dope. And they couldn't help it. I mean, naturally, it's going, if they were there and things so bad and didn't know whether you're going to die tonight or tomorrow, have a counterattack or something, you know, they took a little of that dope on, and then they just got into the system, and looked like to me that after Vietnam, more would come to this country than ever before.
Did you see that similar thing happen in World War II, but with
No.
alcohol?
No. But I drank everything going, if you want to know the truth of it. While I was over there, we even drank, they called it cut brush bomb fluid. They mixed something with it, but it really wasn't. Some of the guys did, they said drink buzz bomb fluid, but I don't know. But we'd have alcohol, and we'd mix some schnapps and cognac, anything we could get, we drank it. But now we never done it to put ourselves out the way, you know, enough to just go over there and be a drunkhead, because you're going to get somebody else killed or get yourself killed one. We just drink a little and go ahead, you know, get up a little nerve.
Were you a big smoker during the war too?
I smoked a little during the war, but I quit as soon as I got back almost to the States. When I was 25, I think I quit.
Do you think, and how do you feel about the dropping the atomic bombs on Japan at the end of World War II?
I think it was a necessity. I think it shortened the. It had to shorten the war. It was a terrible situation that had to be done. But I think it saved a lot of lives.
How about the concentration camps in Germany? Did you ever see any?
Yeah, I saw a little of that too.
So it's fact. It's not just something somebody come up with.
Terrible. They made all the Germans in one town there go to see that concentration camp. Just let them look in it, you know. They had, in Germany, they didn't grow corn like we grow corn over here at that time. They had what's called these old big cow turnips. And they'd cook them up and throw them over in there. Some of them people was treated terrible. There's one here could tell you that. He was in one. He should know. But
Did you ever liberate any of our prisoners?
yes, I was in the place where when we went in, and they were so happy to see us that they didn't know what to do.
How was the conditions for our prisoners versus the Jewish and political prisoners?
I can't say that because I couldn't tell one from the other. I never saw them separated out. I did see one woman. One woman in the whole group, must have been 50. One time it was one woman, and we went in there at night, and we cut the lights on, and this couple of English guys in there, and they was telling us that they knew that we were coming because the Germans had treated them well, had fed them better, and they said they had plum pudding as well. I never forgot that. The English like plum pudding, so to say. I don't know.
Did you work with a lot of Englishmen when you were attached to the British Army?
No, I didn't. We was in as a unit, and they was as a unit. But I had talked, we talked to them quite a bit, as far, but otherwise they knew what they was going to do, and we knew what we were going to do. But we were attached to them. We had to, more or less, I guess, be under their command.
Did you come across any of the German secret weapons factories there at the end of the war?
Buzz bomb factory.
Can you describe that?
No, I never took part in going through it, but we captured the buzz bomb factory right close to Schwerin, Germany. But that was over, and couldn't do us no harm in, so it didn't really bother me.
Well, I'd like to thank you for your interview.
Well, I haven't told you much because I didn't do much, I guess.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell the future about your service to our country?
No, well, I guess unless you really volunteered, nobody wanted to go. But I'm glad that I served. I'm glad I had the opportunity to serve. And just thank the good Lord that I didn't get hit or wounded. And that's more than a lot of them could say,
I'd like to thank you, Mr. Mastin. You are a hero.
Yes, sir.